Welcome to Castle Rock, a small town full of mystery and its residents even harder to read. Annie has hallucinations, Ace has family issues, and guys, where exactly is the laughing place? Don't go anywhere, we have a lot to talk about.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, the buzz begins.
What's up, all you Castle Rock fans? Thank you so much for tuning into the Castle Rock After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. I am Veronica Valencia, and I am joined today by my awesome, spooky co-host, Katie Kawamoto. How are you, Katie?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me here, guys.
I'm so excited to have you to talk and bring a new perspective to this show.
Yeah.
Coming up later in the show, we're going to be talking all about Annie Wilkes, kind of get an idea of her backstory. We're also going to be talking about her relationship with her daughter Joy, as well as the Merrills and kind of this weird discombobulated family. We also have some news and gossip, as well as Easter eggs. So if you've seen any, please let us know in the comments. We want to point out as many as possible. But before we get into any of that, Katie, what were your overall thoughts on episode 1 of the second season, Let the River Run?
So I thought it was a much more fast-paced premiere episode than what we got last season. Because last season it felt a lot slower. This one it was like just jumped kind of right into it, and I liked that the pacing was better for sure. But it got intense. I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think this story is going to be lots happening, and it's going to get crazy. It already got crazy, so yeah.
No, I have very similar thoughts to how you felt. I agree that I loved the first season, but it was a little bit slower towards the end. It's where things kind of got hectic and it got more fast paced. This one kind of goes straight on running. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Hits the ground running. There you go. Yeah, this episode really hits the ground running. And I think, I don't know, this one is a little bit less, from what I'm seeing, it's a little bit more kind of murder mystery based as opposed to like spooky supernatural, which I think the last season was a lot more kind of supernatural based. I feel like this season will have that, but it's kind of set up differently. So I think that this season is definitely going to be much quicker paced, or at least I hope so, based on this first episode.
Yeah, seems like it is so far. I mean, even though they didn't have much dialogue in that first scene, you're seeing her popping pills. You're seeing them on the run, clearly, and you're like, okay, that's setting a good tone. You know where it's going, so it's nice. Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about Annie Wilkes, our main character, for a second. So the show kind of opens up with this girl covered in blood, carrying a box down by a lake. And as this episode goes on, we realize that this is Annie. Did you think it was her from the very beginning, or were you like, how are these two people connected?
I think I was a little confused at first because I was like, I'm not sure, because with like the whole flashbacks to like things like that's kind of hard to know, so you're kind of like, I don't know. And last year everything was so not as it seemed, so you're kind of like, oh, waiting for it, and then at the end they finally showed stuff and you're like, oh, okay, I got this now. So I didn't get it right away, no.
Yeah. I mean, the cuts between, I didn't think that immediately, oh, that has to be her, like, so X amount of years later. But about 20 minutes in, I was like, I think that girl is meant to be her, which raises the interesting question of what's her backstory and kind of like showing where she is now. So we see that she is kind of on the run with her daughter, and she's, putting on a lot of these fake identities to still steal pills. And first of all, I kind of want to get your opinion about this too, Katie, but first of all, in my mind, I'm just like, I don't know how they can keep a scheme like that going.
Yeah, that seems very, very hard to do, but I think when you're moving around so much, it makes it easier, because like if you leave the country or you leave the county, there's not going to be a record necessarily unless there's a nationwide search for you. I don't think you have too much to worry about. But if you're going from city to city and vanishing without a trace, it's probably a little bit easier.
I think it's easier to not be looking for Annie Wilkes, which is, her real identity. I think it's a lot easier to not look for her. But I think it's enough to raise question that there is a nurse hopping from city to city stealing drugs. Because, just from what I know about, the healthcare system is like when there's a problem within a hospital, something like that, they usually report it. Granted, those a lot of the time slip under the cracks or slip between the cracks. So I can see why maybe they're not catching on. But like, I was watching this and my thought was, how is she getting away with this? Because it seems like she's been doing it for quite a while.
A routine. She had a routine going. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see more through the season of the problems she had, but I don't know. And then maybe I think she's just really good at covering up her tracks and not getting caught, or at least being able to get away. So,
yeah. Exactly. And so she gets jobs as a registered nurse. And were you curious? I mean, I feel like as the season goes on, we'll learn more of her backstory. But were you kind of curious at all of how, if she was even really trained to be a nurse? Because we learn later on, she's wanted.
Yeah.
So if she's wanted, was it kind of struck your curiosity of how is she able to kind of live a life, get trained as a nurse and kind of do all these things?
That actually is a good question, because you don't really ever see her actually doing nurse things in the episode, if I think about it correctly. You saw her trying to fix like a cart, and then you saw her organizing the board. But I'm trying to think, did we see her actually helping a patient?
I think she inspected one IV.
And IV. Yeah, but you don't actually see her change it or do anything with it. So I think maybe that's also something she's just good at faking as well. But I find it weird that she'd be able to get a job at the hospital without any sort of credentials. But I guess this is Castle Rock. I don't think that they really look into things too much, really.
No, clearly not.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And, as she's kind of going about her day, we start to learn a little bit more about her. The fact that she sees hallucinations from someone kind of like labeled as the tall man.
Yeah.
And we also find out that she is kind of researching a lot of these different kind of psychiatric issues, such as, like she's researching schizophrenia and anxiety and hallucination. So we kind of get an idea that she's suffering from something, but I guess even she doesn't know exactly what it is. And then that's when we find out she Googles herself and she is wanted for murder. And that's when we put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, okay, she was probably the bloody girl.
Yeah.
What was your did you have any ideas of what maybe her hallucinations were coming from, or were you just speculating, or were you so intrigued of who she was as a character?
I think I was thinking that her hallucinations were basically her being haunted by the person she hurt or killed. I'm assuming she killed someone based off what we learn about her later, but I think that that's who's haunting her, maybe, like this person who she harmed, because clearly she harmed someone.
Oh,
she's covered in blood. At least that's what I took from it.
That's interesting. I like that perspective because, I immediately thought that whatever was in that box, which we kind of learned there was a baby in that box.
I thought it was an animal or something at first.
At first, I mean, at first it was labeled as ravening angel, and I kind of have a theory of who this baby turns out to be, but I didn't necessarily think she was haunted from the spirits of the person she harmed. I think she was maybe haunted by the spirits of something she unleashed that caused her to cause harm. And those spirits have kind of since lingered, and she's going through all of these means, getting these pills to try and subdue those hauntings.
Similar to silencing in your head, like in the first season. Yeah. Similar type of thing. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, we both have very different thoughts on that, so it'll be interesting to see
which route
exactly
it goes.
It is. Yeah, or neither.
Yeah. And it's kind of, and another thing too is in the very beginning we see that she's stealing drugs, but they're not like your normal drugs that I guess people would steal, like Oxycontin and everything like that. She was stealing antipsychotics because she's just trying to help herself and in a sense help her daughter as well.
Yeah, which the nurse touched on, which I'm blanking on the nurse's name at the moment.
Dr. H.
Dr. H, where she's like, it's better than you taking these other drugs. So
yeah.
And you're like, I guess that's true. I mean, it's still a little bit worrisome.
I mean, it's still, like, you as a doctor is still a little bit worrisome that you're letting your nurse kind of take all of these drugs, which we'll get into that when we kind of talk about this Meryl family. But I guess it could be worse.
Yeah.
She's not, trying to sell them or just trying to get high. She wants to help herself.
And her daughter.
Exactly. And I mean, she can't, because she's going under so many fake identities, she can't get the proper medication she needs. So she has good intentions. She just has to go about it in a really, like, slimy way.
Yes. Around, like, cutting corners and, being sketchy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you brought up, Katie, that she wants to, do what's best for her and do what's best for her daughter. I would actually love to talk about her relationship with her daughter, Joy. But before we go into that, I just wanted to let everybody know that there is so much content here at AfterBuzz TV, right, Katie?
Yeah, so much. Lots and lots and lots and lots.
I know. We were just talking about it before we went live, how Katie is on a few other shows, a few CW shows, a few HBO shows. I'm on a few other shows myself, some CBS shows. So there's so much content here. We have everything from reality TV to dramas to comedies, you name it. And if we don't have it, we make it. We recently are starting to do Hispanic shows on ABTV Latino. We're getting ready to do a lot of Christmas stuff. We even did a K-pop documentary series the other day. We have so much content here, so we thank you so much for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk. But in order for us to keep doing this, we ask that you please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as give us 5 stars on iTunes, because 1 through 4 don't work. And wherever you are, please stay involved in the conversation. Leave us comments. We love discussing and engaging with you. We love doing this, so please help us keep going.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you. Yeah, so Annie and Joy. Okay, what was your initial thoughts on this kind of mother-daughter relationship?
Initially, I'm just thinking, okay, they're on the move. They don't really ever settle, so they basically only have each other because she's not making friends, which they touch on. So that was my initial thing was, do they have anybody else? Is there anybody else that we're going to see in this family friend circle? Because she's pretty much just friends with her mom.
Yeah.
That's what I thought at the very beginning.
Yeah, initially for me too, because it opens on the scene where Joy is still pretty young, and then it flashes forward to where she's at least probably a teenager now, maybe about 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah.
So my initial thought was, what are they on the run from? Kind of like, what are they trying to avoid or not get caught by doing? So that was my initial reaction of, what did they do? What did this duo do? Yeah. And then as it goes on, you can tell at least that I think Joy has respect for her mom. Like, she doesn't necessarily resent her, even though we do see her kind of feeling regret or, feeling upset that she's missing out on, being a teenager and having friends. I don't think she has any, she doesn't dislike her mom in any way. I think she still greatly treats her with respect.
Yeah. I think that she kind of just takes what her mom says and is like, okay, you know what's best for me, so I'll just take your word on it. And then, of course, she's going to when she sees the kids go by, you're going to have that brief thought like all teenagers do of like, oh, what's that? Like, she's still curious, but I think she's just so used to it, to trusting her mom and knowing that her mom knows what's best. So it's kind of like that's what keeps her just listening to her mom and stuff like that, too.
Yeah.
And she's starting to realize that maybe her mom's right. I think, like, when she went to seeing things she's not supposed to see, staying inside, she wouldn't have gotten into certain things, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'll see some different changes now, but, like, I don't think she had a reason to doubt her mom, other than when she's like, are you on your meds?
Yeah.
Because she knows that her mom acts different. She does know. I didn't know if she knew her mom was on meds. Because, like, when the mom's driving, it kind of looked like she's hiding it from her daughter at first.
Yeah.
But then you find out, oh, her daughter does know that she's on medication. Because that was my one question I had while her mom was almost in a car accident because of her meds. I'm like, oh, but the daughter does know. Okay, so that says something. And she's like, oh, you're not on them, Mom. What's wrong? You need to go get them. So she's also taking care of her mom as well. Yeah, they kind of take care of each other. So.
Yeah, that's another thing is that, she deeply cares and wants to make sure that her mom is taking care of herself and making sure that she is getting her medicine. But they kind of keep talking about, or at least Annie keeps talking about how they're supposed to be going to this laughing place. Yeah. Now, I want to get your thoughts on the laughing place. Did you think it was just kind of a manipulative tactic to get Joy to continue going on, or do you really think that maybe, based on what we know of Annie, she really thinks that there is some kind of, place of joy or place of, like, calm and safety?
I think it might be a little bit of both. Like, when she was younger, it was to calm her down and help her realize, like, we're going somewhere fun, we're going somewhere nice, as a way to get her to go. But then as they got older, I think it just became the thing they kind of fell back to, and, like, we're in search of this place. And then she says that searcher speech in the middle of the show where we're searchers, and I'm like, that kind of shows, like, I think she thinks somewhere out there is genuinely going to be a place where they can settle down and be happy. But I think it's also a lie she tells herself, as, like, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think she is trying to search maybe not for a place that she feels is great for them, but I think Annie is trying to search for a place where she no longer has these hallucinations. Kind of like in the first season, how some of our characters wanted to be in a place where they weren't hearing the ringing anymore. Yeah. I'm sure Annie wants to go to a place where she's no longer haunted by these hallucinations. But it's kind of funny because at one point she says like, oh, we need to go to the laughing place. And then Joy kind of says, oh, Montreal. So it kind of struck me as curious of, oh, is she just saying like to Joy, we need to get to these places, or as we kind of learned, she's just searching, and until she finds a place where there's kind of quiet and peace, it's not the laughing place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to see if that's what exactly they mean by that too. So I think there's a lot more with that too.
Yeah. But it was also kind of nice in this episode to see that despite in the very beginning Annie not liking Castle Rock and wanting to just get in and out as fast as possible, basically routine, it is kind of nice to see that at least for a little bit it seemed like there was a shakeup in the routine, like the fact Joy was able to meet friends.
Yeah.
Or just talk to other people. Maybe it's too early to call them friends.
Yeah.
But talk to other people her age, because she meets Chance.
Yeah.
She meets, I think their names are Timothy and Vera.
Yeah.
And she just gets other human interaction besides her mom. What did you think of this? Like, were you happy to see Joy kind of experience human interaction?
I was actually kind of shocked at how easy it looked for her. Because you don't know how much she's talked to other people. So you're like, is this her first time talking to people her age? Like, you assume it's not. But if it were, I mean, she kind of looked like she was comfortable. And I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad. But I was kind of just impressed that she wasn't like, I mean, she had a couple questions like, oh, what's that? Or I don't know what that is. And like, oh, I don't have a cell phone. But she handled herself really well.
Yeah.
Considering, so she's maybe not sheltered, but she hasn't necessarily had the experience. So I was kind of impressed by her. For sure with that situation, because I was like, I think most people would be shy. Maybe
socially awkward because they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe it's a two-way street kind of thing, because Castle Rock and the adjacent town, Jerusalem's Lot, they're not necessarily fully inhabited by people, and maybe people her age. So maybe it was kind of a mutual thing where Joy was able to come across very social, and so was Chance, because maybe Chance was very happy at the idea of another person her age that she can interact with.
Yeah. So I was like, "Whoa, okay, right." And it was also a little bit more lighthearted moment in kind of a really intense episode. Kind of broke it away from it, because otherwise it could have been really overwhelming if it was just constant, like, intensity. So I think it needed that to kind of break it up a little bit and bring some more life to it in general too. So yeah.
I liked it. It was good to see her have some fun.
Yeah.
Because she's been on the run for who knows how long. All right. Now, I kind of want to talk about the other family. So we touched upon the family, mother-daughter duo of Annie and Joy. And I also kind of want to talk about now this Meryl family, which they are a mess of a family. Complicated family. And I put that in quotes because at least one of them, Ace, does not feel like any of these people are his family.
No.
So let's kind of talk about Ace for a minute. He's a cranky, mean dude.
Yeah, not pleasant at all either. Like,
no.
You're not the person you would ever want to encounter in life ever from the get-go. You're like, I'll stay away.
Yeah. He came across very entitled because, he basically has us run-in with his stepbrother, Abdi, of like, why are you taking over my lot? Why are you poaching my tenants kind of thing? So he has this entitled attitude where he thinks he's owed everything kind of in this town. But then he makes the comment to his dad, who's basically like, I got everything I deserved. Or like I earned, I took what he deserved is what he said.
Yeah.
Which still sounds entitled.
Yeah, it does. It does very much. Yeah, he just seems like the kind of person who's like, doesn't really care about what other people need or want. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to keep my money and all this different stuff. Because, like, even later on when you see him, he's like, I can walk in here. Like, It's just like, you can, but you shouldn't. So it's a lot of just like, he's going to do whatever he wants. Doesn't matter who is in his way, even if it's his family. And I mean, even after he talked to his dad, because he talked to his dad, right?
It was his uncle.
His uncle. Okay,
sorry. I
yeah.
think I misspoke previously. It's actually his uncle.
Yeah, who he was like telling, or no, he talked to his stepdaughter. That's right. He talked to her instead. Was like, talk to your brother. So he's trying to do damage control on that side. But like Ace, I'm pretty sure no one's going to be able to talk him down. Yeah. I think he's going to just have his own agenda. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think it's kind of interesting when you learn that, so Ace and his brother, who we kind of briefly meet, Chris, who's very different, much more mild-mannered, much, calmer, kind of on the brighter side of things kind of guy. It's kind of interesting that we see that these two brothers are Pop's adopted nephews, and then he also adopts Dr. H or Nadia and Abdi, and kind of seeing how this family grew up and just kind of like the difference. Because even in this town, it's like we see that there's, the population of the town, and then we see that there's also all these kind of Somali refugees. Yeah. And so I feel like even that might be kind of a tension, just if we're talking about discrimination, kind of in that sense of how maybe Ace kind of grew up entitled because he's seeing that people who aren't like him are being as successful.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's hard for some people to see that are like him. So
yeah.
Because,
it's very, very different. So it's like growing up, you can also imagine just kind of how he was. But let's talk about Abdi for a minute, because he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. Like he's, working in real estate. He's building this new mall to better the Somali population, to kind of not make them feel so threatened by the other residents, especially people like Ace, because we saw when he was introduced, he's just walking in demanding payment, being like, you are staying here. And then when the one guy tries to leave, he's basically saying, you're not going anywhere. Keep your money, but you're not going anywhere. Yeah. So it's nice to see that Abdi is kind of trying to break away from kind of people who view them poorly and just trying to make a safer, better place for the Somali population. Yeah. But then we see maybe he's not so rock steady because he's sleeping on his sister's couch.
Yeah. So clearly he's like, there's more going on that we're not necessarily seeing yet, or that he's pretending is better than it is, perhaps, or, it's hard. I think this is like one of those characters I think we're going to have to we'll have a lot of questions about for a lot of the season, I think. Because I don't think we're going to learn a lot about him, but then you do learn that, he's a little upset at the end of the... So I think we're going to see kind of a little bit of a change, too, because we're going to see him trying to fight for what he wants, possibly in other means as well. Because, he kind of got attacked, so, you can't just walk away from that like it didn't happen. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I'm kind of... granted, we will see as the season goes out, but I feel from the very beginning, these are kind of a lot of characters that are being thrown at us. Yeah. And so I'm kind of hoping that throughout the season, they each get a moment to kind of shine, or that we just better understand them, like no character left behind kind of thing. Because this is a few people that we are getting introduced to enough that we know something about them. Yeah. And we also get introduced to kind of Pop, who we find out is dying from cancer. And he's also played by Tim Robbins, who's basically taking over Sissy Spacek's role of like, I was actually in a Stephen King work once upon a time.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep seeing those cameos. Because last year there were two, because Bill Skarsgård as well. So it's like you have people from the universe or whatever coming in. And it's like, who are you playing this time? But they're playing someone different. So, it's going to be, I'm sure we'll see more.
I feel like with him specifically, and we can get into this a little bit more when we talk about our season predictions, but I feel like we are going to see at least a bit of him, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we kind of already touched on Chris Merrill. He was in one scene. It's kind of hard to get an idea of this guy other than he's much different than his brother.
Yes. You only saw him in one scene, right?
In one scene,
when they're at the beginning, when they're all together, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll see more maybe in the second episode. I know some of our listeners and viewers have watched episode 2 already. So if you have, we haven't watched it yet. So I know some of you guys have seen it, but we will definitely talk about that hopefully very shortly. Mm-hmm. So we obviously are saying these things based off of just episode 1. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you think that Chris will be an ally to Annie? Kind of based on the interaction, it seemed like he was, kind of, it's maybe happy is not the right word, but, he's just kind of like a good guy. So maybe he was happy, I guess, to see that she's staying. So do you think it's possible he could be an ally for her?
Yeah, I don't get bad vibes from him at the moment. So I think that he'll be someone who you see having multiple encounters with her, like, throughout the entire show. But it's, from the first episode, I didn't get bad vibes at all. Like, I'm like, he genuinely just wants to make sure she's taken care of and that she's enjoying her time at Castle Rock. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, kind of the last character who we're introduced to. And besides maybe Annie, I find this character so interesting, and that's Dr. H.
Yeah.
I find her so interesting because she's truly like the go-getter, like the successful person to come out of this town. Granted, you can say Abdi is kind of successful in what he's trying to do right now with his project. Ace, I guess, is successful because he owns a lot of land, a lot of property. But she's like legitimately successful in that she, went to school and, is a doctor. And you can tell that Pop is obviously most proud of her.
Yeah. She just kind of kept coming out surprisingly, being like, you didn't really know what to expect from her. Because, like, when she catches Annie, you're kind of like, how's this gonna go? Because you didn't know enough about her at that point to know if she's gonna get really upset, if she's gonna fire her, if she's gonna kick her out. And then you see her turn and you're like, okay, so she really thinks differently than just a doctor would think. She's thinking about mankind and humans' well-being as well, in the sense that she let her go and not even let her go, like gave her the pill. So you're like, has something else going on in her brain, that she's not only focused on medicine, but that's still, she's trying to do what's best for each person, I think, and not just as a whole, like the people. Yeah. She was like, oh, are you a junkie? Like, because obviously they installed a certain way so that people couldn't do that. So she knows people are trying to do that. So so I'm interested for her, intrigued by her character, because I was like, she seems very good.
She's very different, and very good.
Yeah, and I'm like, is she too good for Castle Rock? Like, so.
Yeah.
I was like, But I definitely like her a lot.
I think she valued honesty, too, from Annie. Because Annie was very vulnerable. It's kind of hard to be like, hey, I suffer from X, Y, and Z, and I was able to find the quote-unquote recipe that helps me. Yeah. And I think she valued the honesty and kind of, was able to empathize with her because she saw Annie's empathy. And like you were saying, Katie, I think, this goes beyond medicine. This is a people thing. Like, she wants to help the person, not just, study.
Not just, like, the symptoms, but, like, So, yeah.
So yeah, she's someone who definitely intrigues me for sure, and again, I hope that these characters some of these characters aren't left behind. I hope that they all develop and we all get to see a healthy amount of them this season, because I mean, aside from Ace, because I don't know if he's dead or not. I don't know. In Castle Rock, you don't know, but
you really don't.
Yeah, let's talk about that just real quick. Touch upon that, about how Annie, basically almost gets found out by him because he's a creeper and is spying on, like, their internet searches. Yeah. But she lets him have it. Was this surprising to you?
I was not expecting that, and, like, right out the get-go on the first episode, like, that finale scene, I was like, first of all, I never thought that you could use an ice cream scooper to kill someone.
It was, oh gosh, it was like, it lingered. It lingered, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel this, like, it's,
she did the Heimlich to get it out of his throat, which I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it was creepy. Like, she couldn't, and she did the Heimlich to get it up, and I was like, well, this started a totally different tone for the show. And I'm like, how many bodies are we going to see drop by the end of this show if she's killing someone in the first one?
It really made me curious about her past, because she seemed, like you were saying, she seemed experienced, because like you were saying, she knew how to get the scooper out, or she knew, what items to take, and she knew how to get rid of a body and kind of stuff. So it really raises questions about her past and kind of, what happened. Yeah. So...
Yeah.
I'm curious, but yeah, no, I was not expecting the episode to end that way. I was not expecting this, but it definitely got my attention, and it's making me very curious on what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Also, it's also, I guess, a very good thing, coincidental thing for Ace, that he basically is now being investigated for arson. So if he goes missing, is people gonna really be like,
I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Are people really gonna be curious on what happened? Who knows? We will see.
Yeah.
But for right now, we are actually gonna go into some news and gossip.
Yeah.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So, the actress who plays Annie, which is why can I?
Lizzy Caplain.
Lizzy Caplain. Yeah, thank you. She did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, kind of about her role and what she was excited about, etc., like that. And then they asked her, what was it about Misery and Annie Wilkes that resonated with you? And she said both the movie and the book are told from Paul Sheldon's point of view, and in the film you get a little more shades of Annie, but both of them are pretty much exclusively Paul Sheldon's point of view. What I think makes her so terrifying and so different than so many straight-up movie villains or villains in literature is that she really does have many different gears and modes and sides to her. She's kind of silly, she gets excited and acts like a little girl, and there's something really disarmingly sweet about her. And then when she turns, it makes it that much more terrifying. I think she is so much scarier than just a straight-up monster because she's so much more complicated than that. Mm-hmm. So she's you're gonna see a lot of different things come out of that. So yeah. And then she just continues to talk about kind of like, you know, the last person to play this character was Kathy Bates, and she kind of talks about how that in general was terrifying as well, to be taking in those shoes, because Kathy Bates, I mean, I think all of us can agree, is fantastic. So she talks a little bit about that and how she was terrified. She says, I have always loved the film, and specifically Kathy Bates' performance in that movie. It was completely terrifying, and I find that the terrifying things are the exciting things to try. So that's cool. That's bold. That's good for her. It shows that she's really wants to take this.
She wants to take risks.
Yeah, risks, and also it's important to her to do it justice as well. So yeah.
I mean, so far I'm really enjoying her performance, and I can't wait to kind of see what she does with this character as time goes on, because I'm sure they have more room to kind of experiment with this character. So it'll be really fun to see. Yeah. All right, guys. I think it's just about time to go on a hunt. A little Easter egg hunt. Oh, yeah. So soothing. So Katie and I are just kind of go through this episode and kind of talk about the Easter eggs that we saw. And if you guys saw any, please let us know, because there are so many Stephen King's works out there that it's really hard to kind of find everything. So we're just kind of going to talk about what we saw, and then let us know what you saw as well.
So things I noticed, obviously you see them past Shawshank, you see them past all these signs for different locations that have been known in the universe of Stephen King and in the world, but also the Emporium Galorium was a location in Pet Sematary and Needful Things. So they wanted you to see that one because they panned on it, like it was very obvious. Obviously Salem's Lot, and then there was one where Joy Wilkes says she's getting cabin fevery. Obviously a note to The Shining. So I thought that was clever because I was like, oh, Shining, all right. Yeah. So, and that was 3 that I noticed. So when you noticed a few too.
Yeah, I think for me they were kind of a little obvious ones. So in the first season of Castle Rock, they only brought in one character from the works, and that was, I believe, Alan Pangborn. But this time around they brought in a few people. They brought in Annie Wilkes, who was the main protagonist in Misery. They brought in Reginald Pop Merrill, who owns the Emporium?
Yeah.
And then they also brought in Ace Merrill. So some of the Merrills, if maybe we'll get more of that family. So they brought in a few more characters from Stephen King's works. I also saw, I didn't catch this one myself. I will admit that I cheated and saw that it was on an article. But I believe that when you're scrolling through or looking at the credits and you're looking in the book, there's one line that says like Marston House, which is kind of where she ends up.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. So that was a good.
I mean, like I said, I cheated, but
because I was trying to see if there was any clues in the title sequence as well. Because I was like, it seems the same, but nope. There's maybe some hidden clues. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like it's so easy to overlook the opening sequence because it's like, oh, it's the same, but I'm sure if you look closely enough, the text is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then just other kind of stuff. Just honestly, my Easter eggs were just the things that they brought in more from Stephen King's universe. So like the Salem lot and Jerusalem's lot, the house, you know, all of these extra characters. I didn't find anything that was like super hidden or just like thrown
just
in.
Obvious ones.
Kind of the obvious ones for me on this first episode, I'll admit. So like I said, if you found any Easter eggs, let us know in the comments or in the live chat. We would love to see what you guys saw because I'm sure the show is obviously going to be full of them.
Yeah. I'm sure this is just a few of them, and I'm sure there's more too. So yeah.
Well, that kind of just about wraps it up for our review of Castle Rock Season 2, Episode 1, Let the River Run. Katie, where can the fans find you on social media?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at KT_Christine, and also on Monday nights on the Con Guy Show on Popcorn Talk Network. Okay.
And I'm Veronica Valencia. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at it's me, Veronica_V. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into our after show. I want to give a shout out to Drac in the chat who has been chatting it up with us. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe, like I said, to AfterBuzz on YouTube so that way you can get updates on when we will be reviewing Episode 2. Bye, guys. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.